In this video, we are going to talk about creating arrays of objects and kind of how to use those and just the various methods that can be associated with that. So right now we just have been using the same class rectangle that we've been using the last couple of videos. And so what we can do is we can go ahead and make a rectangle array, just similar to making normal rectangle array. We'll call it rectangles. And for the sake of this, we'll go ahead and just make it of size 5. Let's go ahead and we'll make a const int size. We'll set it equal to 5, and we'll go ahead and use that just because it's a little bit better practice. And now, if we want to go ahead and print the info for each particular rectangle, then we've seen this before. We'll just do int I equals 0, I is less than the size, plus I. And then we'll call print info on rectangles at I. Nothing really groundbreaking there. We've seen that before. We can go ahead and run it. And printing info for rectangle, so on and so forth. Not really a big deal. But let's say that instead of passing in just one rectangle into this print info, we actually just want to pass in the entire array. And so let's take a look at that. That will look like this. And we'll go ahead and put this right here so that we can do size in there. And we'll call this rectangles. And we'll change this so that we'll print info on rectangles. And then this is obviously going to change a little bit. But now I want to show you kind of how to call a method on a particular object within an element of an array. And so that kind of sounds a little wordy, but let's just take a look. So we know that we're going to be iterating across this array, and so we'll just do int I equals 0, I is less than size, plus I, kind of your usual. And now what we're going to say is printing rectangle info for, and then instead of rec.getName like we had before, we're going to do rectangles at I.getName, and then we'll have our end line. And so we can actually go ahead and copy paste this up, because why not? Waste not, want not, that type of thing. And then instead of rec, once again, we just replace this with rectangles at I. And rec gets replaced with rectangles at I. And so the important thing to note here is that in this array, and so I'll go ahead and draw an array real quickly here for you. In our array, we have, in an int array, this might be like 5 and 6 and 7 and so on and so forth. Sorry about that. And so on and so forth. But in this case, we actually have a rectangle object right here and another rectangle object right here, and so on and so forth all the way down, so that we actually have a container of rectangle objects, which means that, so if we we'll just call this RS for this demo, which means that if we want to access this element using index 1 or 0 or 1 or whatever, then we will say RS at 0. And so RS at 0, this is a rectangle object. Rectangle object. Sorry for my programmer handwriting there. And so it's important to remember that rectangles, right here, rectangles at I is one particular rectangle object, whereas rectangles is an array of objects. And so we can treat rectangles at I the exact same as if we were talking about one specific rectangle object, which is why in our function down here, print info, originally we started out with rec.getLength, but we are able to just modify it and replace it with rectangles at I to iterate across an array of objects.